You might need to turn this down.
Yeah, you might need to. I don't usually use a microphone, but Wes said brave, and a lot of other people called it insane. But until recently, just like 4 months ago, 4 months ago, I was a union auto worker. In fact, I was a chief union steward at the Toledo Jeep plant. That was one of the first union plants to go on strike in this recent UAW strike. So my company, Chrysler, offered me a small pittance to take an early retirement, and I was like, fuck it. I always dreamed of being a writer. So
You already were.
A lot of people call me crazy. So anyway, I want to kick off with a poem for my union brothers and sisters that just got a tentative agreement deal today. So my union brothers and sisters at the Toledo Jeep plant should be going back to work for the first time in 15 years. They got a cost of living adjustment. So if inflation goes up, my union brothers and sisters will get a raise too. Anyway, this poem's for them. God bless the union auto workers. God bless the union auto workers that coach Little League baseball games after 10-hour shifts. God bless the union auto workers that volunteer in their community at youth centers and libraries and local food banks. God bless the union auto workers whose labor provides 5% of our gross domestic product, whose labor provides over $70 billion in taxes, whose labor supports local schools and police departments and city parks. God bless the union auto workers who buy and consume American-made products, who go to Friday night high school football games, who vote in every election. God bless the union auto workers that support book drives for inner city elementary schools and Red Cross blood drives and free community health clinics. God bless the union auto workers that walk out of factories at midnight under blue-black September night skies carrying picket signs. God bless the union auto workers that stand against corporate greed. God bless the union auto workers that have built great cities and watched as their numbers have dwindled and their cities with them. God bless the union auto workers that stand up and strike anyway. All right. What's that?
Music or no music?
You know what? Let's do music for the poem, and then after this poem, I'm going to read a couple pieces from my new novel, and then I'll finish with another poem for music. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. Cool. Always make the people that are making you look better, keep them happy. Anybody here a poet?
Yeah.
Right? It's okay to tell people, man, we're in a safe crowd. No shit. I've worked in factories for all my life, almost. At least warehouse, blue-collar jobs, right? You don't tell people in a factory you're a poet right away. Because the oddball and the poet gets picked on, right? Anyway, if you're a poet, this poem's for you. It's called Do It. Do it so that Charles Bukowski didn't write in vain, living on 40 ounces of cheap beer and 2 candy bars a day. Do it so that D.A. Levy knows it's still worth going to jail for. Do it so that Federico Garcia Lorca's life still means something. Do it so Shakespeare knows that it's to be. Do it so that Rope Dalton knows that it's still for everyone. Do it so that Janice and Jimmy know that they can finally rest in peace. Do it because Leonard Cohen left us, and so did Bowie and Prince and Merle Haggard. Do it so the radio doesn't forget them. Do it because you're worth more than the factory that feeds you. Do it because you are deeper than the TV shows you watch. Do it because they said you would never amount to anything. Do it so the weird ones know that they're not alone. Do it so the underdog has the courage to keep fighting. Do it so the voiceless keep looking for a voice. Do it even though your hands hurt so bad that you can hardly hold a pen. Do it even though you work 2 jobs and 37 days in a row. Do it even though there are days that you don't feel like a poet. Do it because 2024 might be another tough year. Do it because you have survived all of the other years. Do it even if monsters keep you awake at night. Do it even if bill collectors rattle your phone every day. Do it until you find it in your cereal in the morning. Do it until it gets in your bloodstream and becomes who you are. Do it until it's all that you can think about and you feel empty without it. All right, thank you. A week ago, officially, this book got released. This is my new novel.
Yeah.
It's called The Dead and the Desperate. Thank you. Yeah. It's crazy because I spent like a whole fucking year of my life trying to write this thing, right? And then it takes another like 18 months to like get it published somewhere and go through the cover. Like it's a 3-year process. So we're here now, and I'm already writing something new, and I'm kind of sick of it, right? And anyway, I got to read it to you because I want you guys to buy some, right? Because I got kids in college, and I just quit a good job, right? Anyway, this book just released last week, and I'm really grateful. I tried to write an authentic, fictionalized tale of my life in my 20s. And just to give you reference, in May of this year, I celebrated 17 years of sobriety, right? Yeah, thank you. But in my 20s, I'm bipolar, and I've got a lot of other traumatic things wrong with me, right? Because I grew up in a really screwed up childhood. And in my 20s, I wound up homeless with my addictions and shit. And no matter what I read in this book, I want you to know that it doesn't always have to be the same story tomorrow, okay? Anyway, chapter 8 of this book is a poem. Because there's no rules in the independent press, right? And I started writing this chapter, and I'm like, fuck, this should be a poem. So this whole chapter's a poem. They sometimes call the factory the plant. It's because they plant work boots on concrete. They plant empty dreams in human hearts. They plant blood and sweat and arthritis. They plant broken homes in local communities and hang climate change in all our broken windows. They plant addiction, anxiety, and stress and dance marionette cruise ship vocations in front of our dimming eyes. They plant bankruptcies and reverse mortgages. And they plant cancer in every organ, in every cell, in the air, in the water, and in the earth. They call the factory a motherfucking plant because they sure as shit plant cancer. And they plant it and plant it and plant it, and it eats at us. It eats at our city budgets, it eats our schools and our children and our futures. And when all the cancer that they planted has eaten all of the laughter of our children's children, the factory will turn its back and leave to plant cancer in China and Mexico and Vietnam and Taiwan and India. They call the factory the plant because it's where they plant the American dream. And they fertilize the American dream with American workers that give half their lives to grow money for Wall Street farmers. And that money is funneled to 10 billionaires that own all the land the factory plants and factory workers live and die on. All right, chapter 10, I'm going to read you an excerpt, right? Once upon a time, a company CEO only made 20 times as much as a man running his machines. And the American dream was planted and it grew. The American dream grew, but it still had cancer and warts and 13 other diseases you can find in the dictionary but are hard to pronounce. The American dream was born with cancer because it grew from constitutional promises born of lies, and it grew from two of the biggest cancers of them all, religion and racism. The American dream grew because the socialist unions marched and they shouted clever slogans. They worked to keep the American factory in the business of growing the American dream and not just money for Wall Street farmers. Once upon a time, the American dream grew in plants called factories, and the American dream bore fruit, and the American worker ate well, and subdivisions were born around working cities. The American dream grew sprouts of a future for the children of the American worker, and colleges sprouted revolutions that grew change until the Vietnam War sucked up all the change and Agent Orange clouds that stole whole generations of youth and futures from American workers. The American dream grew until the Vietnam War ground the dream to a stump, chipping away at the dream by selecting random teenage boys from every town in America, then feeding those teenage boys to a war machine that spit out their names. You can find those names engraved on black granite plaques in small towns scattered all across Woody Guthrie's America. A war machine named Vietnam ate up all the dreams and futures of small town America. A different war machine named fascism smashed dreams of revolution in Chicago, 1968. In Chicago, 1968, the revolution that was planted at colleges and universities had grown, just as the American dream had grown. The revolution held a prayer circle in Chicago in 1968, but an army of cops and National Guardsmen, all of whom were our very next door neighbors, who only played warrior on the weekends. An army of our very next door neighbors who enjoyed the same fruit from the same American dream, those fuckers drowned the American dream in an ocean of Agent Orange called tear gas. Then a man with no moral compass was born, and he became president. His name was Richard Nixon, and he lied to everyone and said he was not a crook. That motherfucker was indeed a crook, and he tried to strangle the American dream all by himself. Then an actor that snitched to Congress about other actors got to be president. I ain't making this shit up either, by the way. His name was Ronald Reagan. And he broke the legs of the socialist unions, and he started auctioning off American factories to the lowest bidders across the world, to places where dreams don't even grow. A no-good man named Ronald Reagan destroyed the roots of the American dream that used to grow in American factories. And lobbyists bought the politicians. And with no roots down, the American dream didn't even stand a chance. It blew away in great grapes of wrath dust bowls called savings and loan, George W. Bush and stolen elections, 20-year wars on manufactured terrorism, recessions, and reality TV. In a barren wasteland post-Ronald Reagan America, the CEO now makes 300 times more than the worker on the machine, and the 3 wealthiest men in America own half the country. In a barren wasteland post-Ronald Reagan America, American factories are called plants because they grow money for Wall Street farmers who don't even bother to leave black granite plaques with names of those it's eaten alive.
Woo.
CEOs still think they don't make enough
Yeah.
or have enough influence.
Yeah, it's funny, when the UAW went on strike, they asked for a 40% raise, and everybody lost their fucking minds. And they said, wait a minute, that's the only raise that the CEO got last year. This year, he got a 40% raise. We want one too.
Well, he needs it. He's good. He definitely. He don't want less yacht or one. If
He needs at least 5 more million, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, that chapter was too long. And I don't want you to think this is all just about poor factory workers, right? There's a reason why, chapter 57. Anybody ever had a hangover?
Yeah.
This chapter's for you. I woke up at 3 in the afternoon the next day. My eyelids felt as heavy as concrete cinder blocks. My eyes were so dry they squeaked when they opened. My mouth tasted like machine dust and muffler rust. My brain hurt like a toothache. I rolled off my futon and onto the dirty shag carpet, crawled to the bathroom, stood up, leaned against the wall, and pissed, mostly in the toilet, for 10 minutes. I limped to the kitchen naked. There was a napkin with a note scribbled on it. It was tucked under a quarter-full bottle of Jameson's on the cracked and scarred kitchen counter. I stuck my head under the kitchen faucet and ran cold water over my head until I shivered. Then drank and spit. I already read that. There were 2 beers left of my road beers from last night. I got one. Found a Tylenol packet with 2 Tylenols in it. I took the Tylenol with the beer. Read the napkin note. Couldn't wake you up. I left you a Percocet on your weed plate. See you soon. XO, Angie. I went in the living room still naked. My weed plate was a paper plate with weed residue ground into it. It sat with my rolling papers on the TV tray next to my recliner. In the middle of the weed plate was a $10 Percocet. Sometimes love sneaks up on us, and I could have almost cried, but I didn't. I sang Johnny Cash songs under a 30-minute shower so hot and thick with steam, I couldn't see the gray that lived all around my back alley apartment.
Woo!
All right, I feel like I've been up here too long anyway, so I'm just going to read 2 more quick pieces, and then I'm going to end with 1 poem, all right? Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Cool. We're still friends, right? Wait till you hear this one. Chapter 66. If you live a homeless, drug addict, alcoholic life, there's certain ways, like you'll find, any way you can find comfort, you take it, right? This is what this chapter is about. Nikki rode back to my apartment with me. I stopped and got us some fast food french fries and milkshakes, dinner of champions for blue-collar junkies. Nikki took a shower and put on a silk nightgown that barely covered her ass. It was a soft ass, small, but soft as she spooned with me on the futon. Our space heater was cranking on a frosty November night. A shoot-'em-up car chase movie played on the USA channel. Me and Nikki each swallowed a pill from my stash and drank some wild Irish rose, and we fucked again, and it felt good to be drunk and high. It felt good not to feel anything, to not feel the factory aches in my knees and shoulders and hands, to not think about dead kids and kids you haven't seen, to not think about how you're going to make the rent next week, or whether you're going to go to jail at next month's court date. I was between Nikki's legs, hard cock sliding in and out of tight, wet pussy. I laid on top of her, this woman I just met, and I pushed into her, and it felt so good that nothing else mattered for a whole hour.
Woo!
All right, just to bring it full circle, this is the second to last chapter in the book. Chapter 85. Not to hammer a dead horse, but fuck this guy. When Ronald Reagan was elected president in 1980, there were nearly 20 million American factory jobs. Since 1980, his first year in office, America has lost nearly 8 million factory jobs. Half of those factory jobs now live in China.
All right.
True story, I'm not making that up.
That's why I'm breaking dead.
By the way, Richard Modiano is a labor activist and a poet in Los Angeles. He helped edit this book, wrote a word for this, and his word says, "The return of authentic proletarian literature."
Yeah.
And for a long time factory writer, man, that's as good as it gets, you know? All right, one last poem and I'm done. This might be one of my best poems, and I feel like it fits the content of that book really well. And I'm not a slam poet, but a friend of mine has read this poem in slam competitions and said he won. So he never showed me a trophy. I don't know what you win at slams. I don't know. Whatever he won, he didn't share. Anyway, I guess I had somebody cover my work once, you know. This poem's called "Bury My Heart in the Gutter." How much longer will I have to endure cable television and paid infomercials? How much longer will I have to endure 24-hour news channels? How much longer will I have to drive through small towns with clean streets and rows of American flags? Or drive through suburbia with its shiny cop cars and shiny cops carrying shiny guns? How much longer will I have to live counting down the days until they put planet Earth on the endangered species list? How much longer, I do not know, but when the end comes, bury my heart in the gutter. Bury it where the pimps and the street preachers work, near the corners where junkies and hustlers share space. Bury it in an alley behind a dumpster or under a bridge where the stray dogs live. Take me back home where $3.75 will buy a bottle of strong, cheap wine. The gutter where I found the people that God never loved. The gutter where I learned that crack cocaine is both the devil and the angel of light. Where I learned that bucking and fighting are the coping mechanisms of damaged people, and that there's nothing softer than the maternal instincts of a kind-hearted whore. Where I learned that when you have nothing, there is freedom. Where I learned that hell is a real place and you don't have to die to go there. Where I learned that I am more than my addictions. And where I learned the most valuable lesson of all, that the same moon that shines on Wall Street is visible from the gutter if you're just wise enough to look up once in a while. My friends, you may not understand, but when my nightmare ends, bury my heart right where it first came alive, right smack dab in the middle of the motherfucking gutter.